Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evelyn Lopez, and I'm excited to share my research proposal that is focused on leadership and its role in helping employees recover from burnout. This topic, given how the modern workplaces, particularly in tech, has shifted towards remote and hybrid model, which, while flexible, often blur the line between work and life. In my research, explores how two leadership styles, transformational and servant leadership, can foster re-engagement among employees who have recently experienced burnout. So this is what we're going to go over today. I'll begin by providing some background on burnout and why post-burnout recovery matters. Next, I'll introduce the research question that frames the study. Then we'll look at the literature that supports the topic, followed by the study's methodology and design. For that, we'll examine the data analysis plan, acknowledge the study's limitations, and end with broader implications and what that means for future research if we were to have meaningful findings. So, burnout, as defined by APA in 2023, is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged workplace stress. While many organizations are now aware of the importance of preventing burnout, what often gets overlooked is what happens after burnout has occurred. In high pressure environments like the technology industry, burnout creeps in silently and recovery is often left unaddressed. This is concerning because unresolved burnout doesn't just impact individual well being, it also affects productivity, team cohesion, and long term retention. Leadership can be vital to the recovery process since they have the ability to reestablish psychological safety. They can provide emotional validation and reinforce the purpose of work, all of which are necessary for re-engaging someone who has mentally checked out due to burnout. So the core motivation for this research was to explore how leadership can be leveraged not just to prevent burnout, but to actively reverse its effects. The central question driving this study is which leadership styles are most effective at re-engaging employee post-burnout. I'm focusing on transformational leadership, which emphasizes vision, inspiration, and individualized consideration, and as well as servant leadership, which prioritizes empathy, ethical support, and employee development. Both styles are people-oriented styles, but they differ in where they place their focus. So transformational leadership is more goal-driven, while servant leadership centers on follower well-being. Understanding which of these styles better supports recovery can help organizations target their leadership training and develop programs more effectively. So burnout has been studied extensively. According to the Maslach and Jackson, it involves three key dimensions of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and the reduced sense of personal accomplishment. Depersonalization is feeling detached from one's work. So these three combinations lead to lower productivity, increased absenteeism, and even long-term health consequences. So when we think about re-engagement, we're talking more than just returning to work. It means reigniting an employee's connection to their job, both emotionally, cognitively, and behaviorally. Research suggests that supportive leadership can play a huge role here. For example, a study by Aslam found that disengagement often stems from perceived organizational injustice and toxic political behaviors, both of which can be mitigated by effective, empathetic leadership. In this way, leaders aren't just managers of the workflow, but they're also architects of the emotional climate. So this study aims to be a quantitative research design, quantitative between subjects research design. The independent variable is the leadership style, transformational or servant. I chose these two styles because they're consistently linked to positive psychological outcomes, though they approach those outcomes differently, which is where the emphasis is going to be placed on. Transformational leadership inspires through vision and individualized motivation, while servant leadership empowers employees by addressing their personal needs and ensuring their voice is heard. The dependent variable is employee re-engagement, operationalized through the rich work engagement scale. So the participants will be 100 full-time employees from a tech company, specifically those who have experienced burnout in the last 6 months. They aren't in leadership roles themselves, and they're full-time. This will allow the focus to be purely on the leadership effect without the confound of power dynamics. So the procedure begins with informed consent, followed by burnout screening using the Maslick burnout inventory to confirm eligibility. Eligible participants are then randomly assigned to read one of the two leadership NAs, each designed to simulate either a transformational or a servant leader. For example, the transformational leader might say, "Your individual contributions are vital to our future success," while the servant leader will say, "How can I support your goals and ensure your well-being?" After reading the VNA, participants will complete the Utrecht work engagement scale and rate how engaged they would feel under the leadership style. Although this method is hypothetical, it will allow us to isolate the perceived impact of each leadership type on the re-engagement in a controlled setting. We will run independent sample t-tests to compare both leadership styles and the re-engagement score, and an ANOVA will be conducted to control for demographic variables and the different burnout levels. So based on prior research, I hypothesized that servant leadership will yield higher re-engagement scores, particularly for those who have experienced high levels of burnout. That's because servant leadership emphasizes emotional healing and personal growth, and this can resonate more with employees who are recovering from burnout. As we can see in the chart, there wasn't much, I hypothesized that there isn't going to be much difference between transformational and servant in employees who have experienced low burnout. So the study does have limitations. The first one, it will be that since we're using a VNA, we're capturing perceived and not actual leadership behaviors. This makes the scenario more controllable but less realistic. Secondly, as a cross-sectional design, we can't determine causality, just correlation. Third, we rely on self-report data, which introduces subjectivity. And finally, our sample is specific to the tech industry, so we need to be cautious about applying the findings to other fields like healthcare or education without conducting further studies. Despite these limitations, the study could have meaningful applications. So for HR departments, it can offer evidence-based insights into what kind of leadership might best support recovery from burnout. If servant leadership proves more effective, organizations can prioritize emotional intelligence training for their leaders. Beyond tech, these findings could also benefit high-stress fields like healthcare and education. Long term, this research contributes to a broader conversation about moving from burnout prevention to burnout recovery and embedding human-centric leadership as an organizational value. These are the references that I used for my study. I want to thank you guys for reading and hearing me out. Have a nice day.